In this video, we're going to talk about the standard of likelihood of customer confusion. This is the standard that's used to determine whether one mark infringes upon the trademark rights of another mark. The exact test is whether an ordinary consumer is likely to be confused about the source of the goods or services. Now, in order to analyze this, courts in the Patent and Trademark Office usually look at a number of factors. Some courts call these factors the Polaroid factors, after a famous trademark case involving Polaroid. Here are the Polaroid factors, although again, courts will use different combinations of these factors. The first factor is the strength of the original trademark. This refers to how distinctive is the original trademark. If it's far along the spectrum of distinctiveness, if it's a suggestive mark or even an arbitrary or fanciful mark, it's likely to be deemed highly distinctive and therefore relatively strong. If it's a mark in a crowded field where there's a number of other people using similar marks, although not infringing, then perhaps the strength of the original trademark is going to be deemed to be relatively low. The next factor is the similarity of the two marks. Exactly how similar are they? The words being used, the styling around them, the design of any logo. What is the actual similarity of these two marks? The third factor is the means by which the products or services are disseminated to the marketplace. What are the distribution channels? What are the manners of advertising? How likely is it that a customer is going to see these two marks in the same place? The fourth factor is how likely is it that the senior user, the first user, is actually going to bridge the gap between the nature of how their mark is used and the nature of how the junior mark is used. So even if there are differences in how the two marks look, or how the two marks are used in the actual marketplace, how likely is it that the senior user's use of their mark is going to expand so that down the road there is going to be much more likelihood of customer confusion? The fifth factor is whether there's any evidence of actual confusion. Is there evidence of consumers actually thinking that the potentially infringing trademark derives from the same source as the original trademark? The sixth factor is whether the second user had any bad faith, or what was the intent behind their adoption of their mark and how they're using their mark. Did they choose that mark on purpose in order to pass off their goods as coming from the first user of the mark? Are they trying to piggyback on the goodwill of the complaining party? That's what you're looking at for the sixth factor. The seventh factor is the quality of the mark and the goods or services behind the potentially infringing mark. And the last factor is the sophistication of the consumers related to the two goods and services at issue. The more sophisticated the consumers are, the more likely they are to discern small differences between the marks and the goods or services and understand that these two goods and services, even though the marks may be somewhat similar to each other, actually come from distinct sources. Now let's talk about an actual case that employed these likelihood of customer confusion factors. And this case involved a Michigan company, Domino's Pizza. When Domino's Pizza first launched, there already existed Domino's Sugar. Domino's Sugar sued Domino's Pizza, alleging that Domino's Pizza's use of the Domino's mark was likely to cause customer confusion and therefore infringe upon the trademark rights of Domino's Sugar. Now, Domino's Pizza originally lost at the lower court level, and this case went up to the Court of Appeals, where Domino's Pizza eventually prevailed. In particular, the court said that Domino's Sugar wasn't necessarily a very strong mark, because the name Domino is actually a proper name. It's used in a number of different contexts. It's a relatively crowded field. Therefore, we're not going to deem this a strong mark such that they could prevent others from using something even similar to the name Domino with unrelated goods or services. They also looked at the way that these two goods or services are disseminated in the marketplace. Domino's Sugar is sold in grocery stores. Domino's Pizza, although also a food product, is sold through fast food chains through a quick delivery service. They're also marketing to two different customer segments. They found that at that time, Domino's Pizza was being sold to primarily single males on college campuses, while consumers of Domino's Sugar tend to be married people actually living in a household or actually doing cooking in their kitchen and using Domino's Sugar. They didn't find any bad faith on the part of Domino's Pizza, and they also found only limited evidence of any actual confusion. there was actually only 2 consumers that had inquired about whether the provider of Domino's Sugar and Domino's Pizza were the same entity. And the court said, that's not any real evidence of any actual confusion that exists on the part of consumers. Therefore, the court said that even though the names Domino's Sugar, Domino's Pizza are somewhat similar, Domino's Pizza is allowed to use their trademark as a brand identifier for their pizza, and it does not infringe upon Domino's Sugar. So this is an example of how these Polaroid factors are used to apply the likelihood of customer confusion analysis to determine whether trademark infringement exists. But the important point for entrepreneurs and startups is that while Domino's Pizza prevailed in this case, they weren't found to infringe. This case went all the way through litigation, all the way through a Court of Appeals decision. And I'm sure Domino's Pizza had to spend quite a bit on their attorney's fees. And that's something that most startups or entrepreneurs don't want to do. So if you're looking at the likelihood of customer confusion factors, and this appears to be a close call at all, you're probably better off just to pick another name that's not even remotely similar to an existing name used, even if for other goods or services. Because dealing with a complaint letter or a cease and desist letter from another party is something you just probably don't even want to deal with at the early stages of launching your venture. And this has been a general overview of how to look at the likelihood of customer confusion standard for trademark infringement.